More legal trouble could be on the way for Dr. Anthony Fauci on the heels of a Senate committee holding him in contempt of Congress. Dr. Fauci is now facing a subpoena from 3 states' attorney generals. The probe is looking into if Fauci personally benefited from his handling of COVID. West Virginia Attorney General J.B. McCuskey is blasting Fauci, saying, quote, Dr. Fauci's recent refusal to answer Congress's questions about his actions during the pandemic is concerning. The American people deserve to know if they or their elected leaders were misled or manipulated. Both my office and I support Attorney General Utmeyer's efforts to uncover the truth. And J.B. McCuskey is here now, live with us to tell us more about this. Going after Dr. Anthony Fauci, Congress tried. What makes you think that he'll talk to you?
So this is a real testament to the Republican attorney generals and our teamwork and our efforts to keep Americans safe just in general. You know, my office doesn't have the kind of criminal power that James's does. And so we are really happy to be working with him because, you know, my wife and I had a small business during COVID that almost went bankrupt. I watched my children cry themselves to sleep every night knowing that they were going to have to wake up and go to school on an iPad in the house instead of with their friends. I mean, they missed kindergarten and first grade. And there are West Virginians and Americans all across this country who want to know why that happened and if those things were happening to benefit Dr. Fauci or if they were being done to actually keep the American people safe. And when you walk in front of Congress and refuse to answer any questions, it does nothing but raise doubts. And so what this is about is holding him accountable and finding the truth for what was a truly miserable time for so many Americans that cost us time, treasure, and happiness.
So does he have to talk to you? When you subpoena him and want to depose him, does he have to come in and talk to you? Because he's hiding behind his pardon with Congress. But if I'm right, that pardon only covers federal crimes.
Yeah, I'm sure he doesn't think he needs to talk to James, but we are certainly very bullish in our belief that the federal pardons don't cover state crimes. And so that's why it's so important for General Uthmeyer and General Murrell in Louisiana, who stood up on this as well, the 3 of us, to be able to find this information and so that I can bring it back to my prosecutors in the state. And if we find wrongdoing, we're certainly going to recommend prosecution through one of our great county prosecutors here in West Virginia.
Are you interested in this cell phone that Congress has now? HHS sent over his government phone. We don't know what's on it. We don't know how far back it goes. Did he delete items off of that phone? Are you interested in getting a hold of that? Have you reached out for it?
Yeah, so I'm honestly, Aisha, interested in all pieces of information that are going to lend us the ability to start to restore confidence in our government's responses to catastrophes like this. You know, I got to watch my family almost go bankrupt because our business was shut down for 4 months. We weren't even allowed to open our doors. We couldn't even go in there to fulfill online orders. And when you look at what happened to the American people, American families, American children, because of the recommendations of this man, I think all information is important to understand how and why he made those decisions. And if they were wrong, we never repeat them again.
Okay. I have to ask you about this. The president is pushing for Congress to pass the Protect College Sports Act. I'm going to read you a short part of his Truth Social just last night. And this is what he wrote about it. He said, nobody has done more to protect women's athletes than me. And this bill clearly protects the laws in 27 states protecting women's sports and banning men from women's sports. Anyone who tells you differently is lying. Stop grandstanding and try to get this done. And what he's talking about are a couple of Republicans in the Senate that are opposing this bill because they think this is going to undo what the Supreme Court decided earlier this year, which is that this should be left to the states when it comes to whether or not biological men can play in women's sports. So explain this bill to us and what it actually does.
Yeah, that Supreme Court case was actually in West Virginia, and it was my state and my team that won that victory. So there are a few people, like President Trump said, other than he and I and General Labrador in Idaho, who have truly been on the front lines fighting this fight for women and girls to have a fair place to play. And in this instance, I trust Senator Cruz and I trust Senator Schmidt here. Senator Cruz being a former Supreme Court clerk, as well as the Solicitor General of Texas, and Senator Schmidt being one of my former colleagues and one of the most respected former members of our Republican AG ranks. When they say this bill protects women's sports, I believe them. And here's the reason. This needs to happen right now. What we are really on the precipice of is women's and Olympic sports at colleges being canceled at an alarming rate. This problem with what is happening in college sports needs to be fixed right now, or there won't be women's teams for anyone to play on, let alone whether or not the radical liberal left is trying to put transgendered men into women's sports.
Okay. Attorney General Jamie McCuskey, always great to see you. Thanks.